You have very small, while your best friend is much bigger than you. That's why I chose him, not you.
Your Honor, I need to say this out loud because I can't pretend anymore. Richard is a real man. My husband Daniel, he's pathetic. He never satisfied me. Not once in 7 years. And physically, Richard is everything, Daniel is nothing. Daniel is very small. Embarrassingly, too much small. I can't live with that anymore. Richard has bigger, better, skilled. Daniel doesn't know what he's doing. He never did. I finally know what real pleasure feels like, and I can never go back to that disappointment. Victoria pointed at her husband with complete disgust. She wasn't finished. Richard makes me feel like a woman. Daniel makes me feel like I'm doing charity work. Richard's confidence in bed matches his confidence in life. Daniel fumbles through intimacy like a virgin teenager. It's humiliating. And size matters, Your Honor. It really does. Daniel doesn't measure up in any way that counts. I've wasted 7 years with a boy when I needed a man. Her lover Richard, sitting in the back of the courtroom, actually smiled and nodded. Her husband Daniel sat frozen, showing nothing on his face. But what Victoria was about to learn in the next 15 minutes would erase that confident smile forever. And the man she just destroyed in public was about to teach her the most brutal lesson she'd ever receive. Before we get into this crazy story, let me ask you something. What would you do if someone you loved betrayed you, then humiliated you in front of everyone? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you love stories of justice and karma, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you never miss these incredible tales. Daniel and Victoria had been married for 7 years. They met at a small coffee shop where she worked part-time. She was getting certified to teach yoga. He came in twice a week, always ordered black coffee, always tipped well, always said thank you. He dressed simple, jeans and plain shirts, drove an old Honda. They started talking about books and travel dreams. He told her he worked with computers. She thought that meant he fixed them, or did basic office tech support. They dated for 6 months and got married in a small wedding with close family. Their life looked pretty normal. Daniel worked long hours at his computer job. Victoria taught yoga classes at a local studio. They lived in a nice house in a good neighborhood. Bills always got paid. They went on small vacations. Nothing fancy, but comfortable. Victoria never asked questions about how they afforded things. Money was just always there when they needed it. Daniel's college best friend Richard was around all the time. Richard was totally different from Daniel. Loud, flashy, confident. He drove a nice BMW and wore expensive suits. He told everyone he was a director at a big tech company making almost $200,000 a year. Richard loved to pick up the check at restaurants, always using his corporate credit card, making a big show of how successful he was. "When you're at my level, you take care of your people," he'd say with a big grin. Over time, Richard started paying extra attention to Victoria. He'd compliment her outfits, tell her she deserved better things. "You're a 10 married to a 5, he whispered to her one night when Daniel walked away. "You should be wearing diamonds and living in luxury, not this basic middle-class life." Victoria started believing him. Her husband was nice, sure, but he was boring, quiet, small. Richard made her feel special and seen. What she didn't know was that believing Richard would become the biggest mistake of her entire life. 9 months after her wedding, Daniel went on a week-long work trip. Richard showed up at Victoria's house with expensive wine. "Your husband doesn't appreciate what he has," Richard told her. "Let me show you how a real man treats a woman like you." That night, everything changed. The affair started and kept going for 6 years and 3 months. Hotel rooms every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. Weekend trips when Daniel traveled for work. Text messages they thought they deleted. Richard bought her gifts. A Rolex watch. Expensive perfume. Fancy dinners at steakhouses. He made her feel like royalty. "When we finally divorce our spouses," Richard would say, "we'll take the divorce money and move somewhere tropical. We'll live like kings." Victoria loved that dream. Richard was married too, but Victoria told herself his wife didn't understand him. She convinced herself this was okay. Meanwhile, Daniel came home every single night, kissed her on the forehead, asked how her day was, and seemed to have no clue what was happening behind his back. Richard sent Victoria texts making fun of Daniel. "He's so clueless, it's almost sad," Richard wrote. "Your husband is the dumbest guy I know. This is too easy." Victoria laughed at those messages. She felt powerful. She thought she was getting away with everything. Neither of them had any idea what was really happening. Here's what Victoria never knew about Daniel because she never bothered to ask. Daniel didn't talk much about his work because his work was complicated and highly confidential. When Victoria asked what he did, he'd say, "cybersecurity stuff," and she'd immediately lose interest and change the subject. She never asked follow-up questions, never wondered why he traveled to meet with government agencies, never questioned how they could afford their house. If she'd paid any attention at all, she might have noticed things. The way airport security treated him with unusual respect, the special clearance badges he carried, the fact that their house was completely paid off even though they'd only been married 7 years. But Victoria didn't notice any of it because she didn't care enough to look. She decided her husband was small and boring, and once she decided that, she stopped seeing him completely. What she didn't know was about to destroy her world. The affair went on for over 6 years. Victoria and Richard got careless. They stopped being careful. They met at the same hotels, used the same excuses every week, texted each other constantly. One evening, about a year and a half before the divorce, Daniel came home early from a meeting that got canceled. He heard Victoria talking on the phone in the bedroom. The door wasn't closed all the way. He stopped and listened. Victoria was laughing. "I know, baby. Just a few more months and we both file for divorce at the same time. I'll get half of whatever Daniel has in savings. You'll get half from your wife, and we combine it and disappear to somewhere beautiful." She laughed again. "He probably has like 200,000 saved up, maybe 300 if we're lucky. Combined with your share, we'll have enough to start fresh." Daniel stood completely still in the hallway. He didn't make a sound. He quietly walked back outside, got in his car, and just sat there for 20 minutes. Then he pulled out his phone and made one call. "Sarah, this is Daniel. I need a lawyer. My wife is cheating on me with my best friend, and I need to protect everything I've built. Can we meet tomorrow morning?" Sarah Martinez was the best divorce lawyer in the entire state, and she was about to help Daniel do something absolutely perfect. For the next 18 months, Daniel acted completely normal. He kissed Victoria goodbye every morning, asked about her yoga classes, smiled at Richard when they all had dinner together. But behind the scenes, Daniel was moving like a chess champion. He hired a private investigator who followed Victoria and Richard everywhere. The investigator got photos of them going into hotels, videos of them kissing in parking lots, recovered deleted text messages from cloud backups, credit card statements showing Richard using his company expense account to pay for romantic dinners, which is fraud. Every single piece of evidence was collected, organized, and filed away. Daniel also worked with Sarah to restructure all his money and assets. He moved things into protected trusts. He created legal walls around everything he'd worked for, built barriers that couldn't be broken. Victoria and Richard had zero idea any of this was happening. They kept texting about their Bali fantasy, kept making fun of Daniel, kept planning their future using money they thought they'd take from the boring computer guy. The whole time, Daniel was 30 steps ahead of both of them. Finally, the divorce hearing day arrived. Victoria walked into that courtroom wearing her fake Rolex, designer clothes Richard bought with stolen company money, and a huge, confident smile on her face. Richard sat in the gallery wearing his nicest suit, looking supportive and smug. Victoria's lawyer had told her she'd probably get half of Daniel's stuff. "Tech guys usually have decent savings," her lawyer said. "You're probably looking at a few $100,000, maybe $500,000 if he's been smart." Victoria thought that was perfect. Add that to what Richard would get from divorcing his wife, and they'd have enough money to start their dream life. When the judge asked Victoria to explain why she wanted a divorce, she decided to completely destroy Daniel. She wanted to hurt him the way she felt he'd hurt her by being boring and small and inadequate. "Your Honor," Victoria started, her voice loud and clear, "I need to be completely honest about why I'm here. My husband's best friend Richard has been my lover for 2 years." She lied about how long to make herself look less guilty, and I need to explain why this happened. Richard satisfies me in every single way. My husband Daniel has never satisfied me. Not once, not ever. Not in 7 years of marriage. The courtroom got really quiet. Daniel didn't move at all. Victoria felt bolder. Richard has a real career. He's a director at a major tech company making almost $200,000 every year. My husband Daniel makes maybe $60,000 doing basic computer repair work. Richard takes me to 5-star restaurants with wine lists and dress codes. Daniel takes me to Olive Garden with unlimited breadsticks. Richard bought me this Rolex. She held up her wrist. Daniel bought me a Fitbit for Christmas. Some people in the courtroom shifted uncomfortably, but Victoria was just getting started. She was about to say things that would make everyone gasp. And I need to be very personal here, Your Honor, because it matters. Physically, Richard is a real man in every single way. Daniel is inadequate. Completely inadequate. Too small to satisfy any woman. Richard is bigger, stronger, more confident, more skilled. Daniel is embarrassingly small. Like, actually embarrassing. I've spent 7 years pretending it was okay, but it wasn't. Not once did he satisfy me. Richard showed me what I was missing this whole time. He's everything Daniel isn't, in every way you can measure. She looked right at Daniel with pure disgust on her face. I finally got to experience what a real man feels like, and I can never go back to that disappointment. Daniel doesn't measure up. Literally doesn't measure up where it counts most. I need a real man, not a boy playing pretend. Richard actually nodded from where he sat in the back, looking proud of himself. Victoria continued destroying her husband. Richard knows exactly what he's doing in bed. Daniel fumbles through everything like it's his first time. Every single time. With Richard, I experience real pleasure. Multiple times, every single day. With Daniel, I just laid there waiting for it to be over because it was so awkward and disappointing. He's truly terrible. The worst I've ever experienced. The judge looked shocked and disturbed. People in the courtroom couldn't believe what they were hearing. Daniel still hadn't moved or changed his expression. His face was completely blank. Victoria finally sat down, looking very satisfied with herself. Richard caught her eye from the back and winked at her. Her lawyer leaned over and whispered, "That was really harsh, but it shows emotional suffering. Good strategy." Victoria felt like she'd won. She'd destroyed Daniel in public, and soon she'd take his money and start her new life with Richard. Then Daniel's lawyer, Sarah Martinez, stood up slowly. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair pulled back tight. She'd been sitting quietly the whole time, just taking notes and showing no emotion. "Your Honor," Sarah said in a calm, steady voice, "I'd like to present some evidence for the court to see." She opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. What happened in the next 10 minutes would change absolutely everything. The entire courtroom was about to be shocked. Sarah walked to the middle of the room. Mrs. Victoria Chen just testified under oath that her husband Daniel makes about $60,000 doing basic computer repair work. That testimony is completely false. She pulled out official documents. Daniel Chen is the Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of a company called Fortress Cybersecurity Solutions. Your Honor, you've probably heard of this company. They provide cybersecurity systems for the Department of Defense, the FBI, major banks, and 70% of all Fortune 500 companies in America. The judge's eyes went wide. Sarah kept going. The company went public 9 years ago before Daniel even met Victoria. Mr. Chen personally owns 28% of the entire company. Right now, today, his shares are worth $780 million. His salary alone, not counting stock options and bonuses, is $45 million per year. The entire courtroom exploded. People gasped out loud, started whispering to each other. Victoria's face turned completely white like she'd seen a ghost. Her mouth fell open. Richard looked like someone punched him in the stomach. But Sarah wasn't even close to done yet. Mrs. Chen praised Richard Sullivan, calling him a big-time director making almost $200,000 a year. That's also false. Mr. Sullivan is actually a middle manager at a company called TechGuard Solutions. His real salary is $115,000, not 200,000. He lied to Mrs. Chen to impress her. Sarah put more documents on the judge's desk. But here's the really interesting part. TechGuard Solutions, where Richard works, is actually a client of Daniel's company. They rent security software from Fortress Cybersecurity. Richard's entire job exists because of technology that Daniel created. Daniel is basically Richard's boss without Richard even knowing it. Richard's face turned bright red. Sarah held up a small piece of paper. That Rolex watch Mrs. Chen is wearing right now? The one she praised as an expensive gift from Richard. It's fake. A cheap $300 knockoff bought online from China. We had a certified jeweler examine it. Here's their official report. She handed it to the judge. Victoria looked down at her wrist like the watch was suddenly burning her skin. But Sarah wasn't done destroying them yet. Those fancy restaurants Richard took Mrs. Chen to? He paid for all of them using his corporate expense account, which is fraud and theft from his employer. We have statements showing he stole $48,000 over 6 years for personal romantic dinners. His company has been notified and police may press charges. She paused to let that sink in. But here's what Mrs. Chen didn't know while she was betraying her husband for 6 years. Daniel has been secretly paying off her student loans. She had $82,000 in debt. Daniel has quietly paid off $67,000 of it without ever telling her because he wanted to surprise her when it was completely gone. He's also been putting $5,000 every single month for 7 years into a secret savings account. Why? Because on their second date, Victoria mentioned she dreamed of opening her own bakery someday. Daniel never forgot. He's been saving for her dream. That account now has $420,000 in it. All for her. Victoria started crying hard, but not because she was grateful. She was crying because she suddenly understood the huge mistake she'd made. Sarah's voice turned ice cold. And here's the final truth that matters most. My client has known about this affair for 18 months. He hired a private investigator. We have hundreds of photos, dozens of videos, hotel receipts, and recovered text messages, including messages where Richard called Daniel the dumbest guy I know, and where Victoria talked about taking half his money to run away to Bali together. The judge looked absolutely disgusted. During a quick break, something else happened. Richard's phone buzzed with an email. It was from his company's HR department. Your employment is terminated immediately, effective now. Fortress Cybersecurity has informed us they will cancel our $52 million annual contract unless you are removed from the company today. The decision was easy. You're fired. Security will escort you out of the building. Do not return. Richard's hands shook as he read the words. $52 million contract versus one middle manager who committed fraud. The company didn't even hesitate. Then Richard noticed someone standing in the very back of the courtroom. A woman he recognized, his wife. Sarah had called her a week ago and told her everything. She'd been sitting there the entire time, listening to every detail of her husband's affair, listening to him nod proudly while Victoria praised him as a lover. Richard's wife didn't say a word. She just turned around and walked out. 3 days later, she filed for divorce and asked for full custody of their 3 kids. When court started again, Victoria's lawyer tried to argue she deserved money because she gave Daniel emotional support during their marriage. Sarah crushed that argument in about 10 seconds. Mrs. Chen met my client 7 years ago. That was 2 full years after Fortress went public and Daniel was already worth $400 million. She didn't help him build anything. She showed up after he was already successful. Also, this affair started in month 9 of their marriage. Mrs. Chen has been cheating for 6.25 years out of their 7-year marriage. She spent basically the entire marriage betraying my client with his best friend, while he secretly paid her debts and saved for her dreams. The judge had heard more than enough. Victoria tried to speak, tried to apologize, tried to say she didn't know and she was sorry. Daniel finally looked directly at her for the first time. His eyes were completely empty, cold. You never asked, he said quietly. 7 years together. You never once asked what I actually did for work. You just decided I was small and worthless and boring. You showed me exactly who you really are. Thank you for that. Those were the only words Daniel spoke to her that day. The judge awarded Daniel everything. Victoria got $0. Nothing. A restraining order was also issued. She was forbidden from ever contacting Daniel again for any reason. What happened next was fast and brutal. Victoria lost everything. The house belonged to Daniel. The car was in his name. The money she thought existed was all protected in legal trusts she couldn't touch. The bakery savings account was restructured during those 18 months Daniel was preparing. She got absolutely nothing. She had to move into a tiny studio apartment and got a job at Starbucks making $15 an hour. The yoga studio fired her after the court story went viral online. Nobody wanted to take yoga classes from the woman who publicly humiliated her billionaire husband on camera. Richard lost even more. His wife divorced him and got full custody of their 3 kids. The kids refused to even see him after they learned what their dad had done. Richard couldn't find another job in his field because word spread fast in the industry. He ended up selling furniture at a discount warehouse making $42,000 a year. His BMW got repossessed. Everything he built on lies came crashing down. Meanwhile, Daniel did something surprising with his pain. He sold $200 million worth of his company's stock and donated every single penny to organizations that help people going through divorce and betrayal. Therapy programs. Legal help for people who can't afford lawyers. Support groups. He turned his heartbreak into help for thousands of people. 3 years later, Daniel married a woman named Emma. She was a software engineer who'd worked at his company for 6 years. She'd known him long before anyone else knew about his wealth. She loved him for his brilliant mind and his kind heart, not his bank account. They had 3 beautiful kids together. Daniel stayed humble and kind despite having billions of dollars. He never forgot the lesson Victoria and Richard taught him about character. Interestingly, Richard's ex-wife and Daniel became good friends. Her 3 kids started calling him Uncle Daniel, and he helped pay for their college education, showing them what real integrity and kindness looked like. He had no anger toward those innocent children who'd done nothing wrong. Victoria tried over and over to restart her life. She applied for small business loans to open a bakery, but her credit was completely destroyed. She tried to reach out to Daniel to apologize, but the restraining order was still active. She wrote him letters he never opened or read. Every single day at Starbucks, making coffee drinks for people who sometimes recognized her from the viral court video, she lived with the crushing weight of her terrible choices. She'd thrown away a good man for fake gold and empty promises. This story teaches us something really important about judging people and character. We live in a world that's obsessed with appearances. Flash and show instead of real substance. Loud and confident instead of quiet and thoughtful. Victoria chose the man who performed success instead of the man who actually had it. She chose big talk over quiet actions. She measured a man's worth by what restaurants he took her to and what gifts he bought, instead of looking at his actual character and genuine love. And when she had the chance to leave quietly with some dignity, she chose public cruelty because she thought she was attacking someone weaker than her. She had no idea she was revealing her own emptiness to someone who'd already seen completely through her. Daniel's quiet strength was always there. His massive success was always real. His love for her was always genuine. But Victoria never bothered to look beneath the surface. Never asked real questions. Never wondered about the details. She just assumed, judged, and betrayed. And when the truth finally came out, it didn't just embarrass her. It completely destroyed everything she'd built on lies. What's the biggest lesson you're taking from this story? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you loved this story of justice and karma, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss another incredible tale like this one. Give this video a thumbs up if you believe actions always have consequences. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message today, and let me know in the comments what story you want to hear next. Remember something important. The quietest person in the room is very often the most powerful person there. Never mistake kindness for weakness. Never mistake silence for stupidity. And never underestimate someone just because they don't brag about what they have. Sometimes the person you're looking down on is already 10 steps ahead of you, just waiting for you to reveal who you really are. Thanks for watching, and always remember that the truth always comes out eventually. Always.